Well, hello everyone. I'm Philip Carwatt, the Public Services Director for the City of Saginaw, and I'm here to present the fiscal year 23 rubbish services and operating budget. So for fiscal year 23, proposed solid waste services as provided by the Public Service Department can be found on pages 159 through 171 in the city's proposed budget. The proposed budget for fiscal year 23 is $4,722,192. The budget for fiscal year 22 was $5,049,349. So there's just over a $300,000 decrease, or roughly 7.8%. This year's budget, proposed budget, is 7.8% less than fiscal year 22 budget. And most of the decreases are minor in each division, and directly related to reduced maintenance and vehicle equipment purchases that were needed for the services, and capital items that aren't budgeted for in fiscal year 23 that were in fiscal year 22. On slide 2, I'm just going to give you, I know we have some newer council members than what we had the last time the presentation was given, so I'm going to take this opportunity to just give some of those newer council members some idea on what type of services you actually get within the rubbish fund. You get curbside collection and disposal of solid waste. And some of these services are done through the authority, Mid-Michigan Waste Authority, and I'll get into some detail of who they are. And some of them, several years back, we brought in-house, and we actually provide services with city staff. But solid waste collection and disposal is done weekly, and that's through the Mid-Michigan Waste Authority and a contracted vendor. Recycling is actually collected by the city and disposed of through the authority. Yard waste is collected by the city weekly and disposed of by the city at our compost site. And then we do provide brush collection that's provided by the city, and that's in addition to the yard waste that's picked up at the curb through the authority. We do have a convenience station that's operated by the city, compost facility, and then we have environmental enforcement and cleanup, which is oversaw by Darren Jerome. But solid waste is weekly collection, disposal of up to 20 bags or cans and 2 bulk items per household. That's offered year-round. That's through the authority. Recycling is a bi-weekly collection and disposal of single-stream recyclable materials. That's offered year-round. Yard waste and brush, that's weekly collection of yard waste, leaves, twigs, and other materials. Additional collection may be provided if necessary to accommodate storm events. And yard waste and brush is seasonal. It begins April 1st and ends November 30th of each year. The convenience station for city residents dispose of anything but hazardous materials such as tires or building materials. And that's available the second Saturday of every month at the City of Saginaw Public Works building from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. And then the compost site towards the north end of the city is open seasonally as well from April 1st through November 30th, and we offer compost and wood chips free of charge to city residents as long as they come and have their own way to deliver it, and it's available to surrounding areas. That's open from Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and on Saturdays 8 a.m. to noon. And this is a little different, but this information is all available at the city's website. But except with the months of June, July, August, and September, the Saturdays are then reduced down to the second and fourth Saturday of the month from 8 a.m. to noon. And then we have environmental enforcement and cleanup, which is collection of downtown, Old Town, West Side, Business District, and Park solid waste. It's removal of spills and debris from city streets, and inspections and issuing of citations for violations of city ordinances, curb violations, rear lot cleanups, etc., and that takes place year-round. Next slide is a little bit of background on who the Mid-Michigan Waste Authority is. It was an authority that began in 1991. It was established to create a goal that cooperative communities would receive better pricing and more services. The rubbish services began in 1995. Today it's a multi-municipal consortium of 34 communities across the Saginaw Valley, and currently provides the city with solid waste collection and disposal, recyclable disposal, and administrative services. A little bit more history. The city was one of its original members of the authority. And the current contract through the authority for solid waste collection, bulky items, disposal of solid waste, and disposal of recyclable material does end this year, December 31st, 2022. And we're currently looking at new proposals and contracts. Once we decide the vendor we're going to go with are going to be either for 5 or 10 years, beginning January 1st of 2023. Reviewing proposals currently, the best pricing from the proposals for services we currently receive would be with Waste Management, who is our current vendor, with a carded service. Their manual pricing was much higher than what we currently pay, and or pretty much price themselves out of providing manual service. Which manual services, you know, you can have your material in bags set out at the curb, and carted services where everything gets put into a larger cart, 36 gallon, 50 some gallon, or 90 some gallon, and it'll be disposed of that way. And then there is a new contractor, probably been in the business about 4 years, a company called Priority Waste, and they have really good bid numbers for manual service, and you'll see some charts later on that show that pricing, but I'm going to need some assistance in determining what direction the city would like to go with the services that we do contract out. So, but we're going to continue to keep recycling collection and yard waste collection in-house for now, and evaluate that at a later time. Next slide basically shows the 34 community members that are part of the Mid-Michigan Waste Authority. Again, the Mid-Michigan Waste current contract. The current contract was a 7-year extension. It does expire this December of 2022. And then, as I stated earlier, recycling and yard waste was brought back in-house with city services sometime around 2016, 2017. And the main reason for that was the city has such a low participation rate in its recycling. I mean, I think we have less than a 15% participation rate of all the houses, and less than a 5% diversion, which means 5% of the total tonnage of trash is actually being diverted as recycling. So, so we have such a small participation, it only made sense to bring that in-house, and then we brought yard waste in-house with it. And since 2016, we estimate our savings by doing that between $400,000 and $500,000 a year. So over the last 5 to 6 years. You know, so on average at that dollar amount with our current house count of 18,492, it's about a $21 per unit per year savings, that if we didn't bring that, that dollar amount would be added to your rubbish fee, would have to be increased. Page number 6, that's basically just showing you some house count history. As you can see, back in the late 2000s, 2008, the house count was at about 23,258. As you can see today, our current house count is at 18,492. So over that time period from 2008 to 2022, we've lost approximately 4,766 units, which can be a duplex, a triplex, a quadplex. So I think we have somewhere around, 17,500 structures that equate to this number, like I said, because many of them are multi-units. So that's a 4,766 unit drop, which is about 20% since 2008. And here's a chart. Earlier I talked about the Mid-Michigan Waste Authority is in the process of reviewing proposals. A couple months ago we issued a request for proposal. We had 4 proposals submitted from 4 different vendors. One was Mterra, our current vendor, Waste Management, which now goes, I believe, under the name WM. GFL, which is Green for Life, and Priority Waste. We've had many different options of types of services. Of all the proposals for the city, we've narrowed it down to pretty much 3 vendors. So we're pretty much looking at going from left to right over the next 10 years, 2023 through 2032. What this graph is basically showing you is that our current pricing through the authority for the services that are similar to what we are bidding here, we pay on average about $108 per unit per year. That's our current price to the authority. So that first column there under year 2023 with GFL manual, to continue our same services with them as we have now for manual collection, our first year price would be $113.90. I mean, that's pretty close. There could be some variation in that, but compared to the 108, so that would be like a $1.90 increase in year 1. And then over the 10 years, that dollar amount, due to reasons increases to them, would go up to $145. So for over the 10-year cost, that would be on average $1,290 per unit for that 10 years of service to each house, to each unit within the city of Saginaw. And then if you go over to the next column, waste management, carts all in, kind of in the center of the graph. So waste management, who's our current vendor, when they bid, their pricing for manual collection was so large that we're not even looking at it either. I mean, it was basically, you could add another, I think it was $50 or $60 to the prices you see here. But these prices would be for waste management to change the city over to carted collection. And I think we had a presentation done a couple years ago or several years ago by Mid-Michigan Waste Authority where the city was looking at going over to a carted service. Many communities are going over to carted services, and I believe as part of this proposal, I can't say any now, but I think some of the municipalities, local municipalities here are going to get away from manual collection and go over to carted because it appears to be that those communities that are doing that like it a lot better than the manual. I do want to let you know if the city was to go to carts that the vendor, even if you had more bags than would fit in the cart, you could set them alongside of the carts and they would still manually collect any of those bags alongside with the cart. But waste management's carted price for collection of solid waste, disposal of solid waste, and disposal of recycling along with administration through the authority would be $103.47, which is just right around $5 less than what we pay currently. But then that increase over the 10 years would go up. So in year 10 or year 2032 would be $144.33 per unit. So, and then the number under that would be what that cost over the 10 years would be, for each unit. So it'd basically be 1,000, very similar to GFL manual, $1,227 to each unit over the 10 years. Then you have priority waste, manual all in. As you can see, their numbers, again, they are a newer company. I think they're 4 years. Some concern from some of the communities based on the newness of the company would be, can they actually perform and provide the services as the cost bid? Because as you can see, first year pricing to the city would be $87.73. And then over the 10 years of that contract, it would go up to $102, which is still over 10 years. You're right around $5 or $6 less than our $108 we're paying today. So basically, that's the three options we're looking at. Again, going to need some help from council, maybe with additional information provided to determine what they're thinking about as far as moving forward for the next 10-year contract with the contracted services through the authority. Next slide is rubbish fund revenues. Again, our current house count is at 18,492. Our rubbish fee for fiscal year 22 was $230. That generated, well, if everybody paid their rubbish fee bill, should generate just over $4,260,000. The proposed rubbish fee for fiscal year 23 is going to increase $10 and go to $240. Again, if everybody, based on the 18,492 units, paid that bill, that would generate around $4,438,000, which would be about a 4% increase, which is needed to cover the services that are provided. And I'll get into some detail later that even at that rubbish fee, based on our expenditures, earlier I said I think our overall budget for this year is just over $4.7 million. So as you can see, the $4.4 million, if that was the only revenue we brought in, does not cover the costs of services that are needed for the rubbish. So we continue to use a little bit of our fund balance to go ahead and cover those differences. Slide 9 is proposed fiscal year 23 anticipated rubbish revenue with the fee increase. And then these are, so as I said earlier, I mean, the rubbish fee is the largest part of the rubbish revenue, but there are also some other revenues that are generated through our operations. Our compost site that we operate for the city of Saginaw, based on sales of finished material, is estimated to generate $55,000. Environmental violations through Darren Jerome's office, code enforcement, is estimated to generate just under $5,000. And then there is a process for the fee. I'm just going to try to explain this real quickly. We can get you more information later if needed, but the rubbish bill goes out in, I believe, August, September of each year. You have a certain timeline to pay that. If you pay it within that first timeline, there's no penalties, there's no fees associated. If you don't pay it within the timeline, the city will attempt to collect. I think there is a certain fee added to that once you're late, a late fee, Whatever the city can't collect is then bought by the county. The county will buy all the unpaid debt. They attempt to collect on it. Whatever they can't collect over time, I think it's about a 2-year process, comes back to the city as a chargeback. And some of those uncollected might be basically structures that at the time of the bill were still, lived in or reside in, but maybe they became vacant and at some point became obtained, by the land bank or demolished. So we wouldn't expect to see those structures get paid for. And I showed earlier in a slide the housing unit loss from 2008 to 2022. So some of them units could just become units that are then being demolished or removed. But those are the estimates based on what we have seen historically over the years with the rubbish fund. And again, this year, to balance the budget with the revenue shown in the expenditure, the city is proposing to use part of its fund equity in the amount of $352,888. With the existing fund balance we have and that use, that would leave $451,702 in our fund balance as we move into each fiscal year to try to continue to provide these operations. Slide 10, rubbish fund expenditures. Several divisions that make up the rubbish fund. The fund pays for services and legacy costs, also for the Mid-Michigan Waste contract fees, as I spoke earlier, which we're currently reviewing proposals. It includes all costs for solid waste collection and disposal, recyclable disposal, and also administration by the authority. And then again, the divisions, administrations, these are the division numbers. 4582 is the convenience station, environmental enforcement cleanup, brush collection, recycling collection, compost site operation, and yard waste collection. And again, the fiscal year 22 budget was just over $5 million, and the proposed 23 is $4,722,000. Then here's a chart that basically shows the costs. So for the fiscal year 23, the overall budget, $4,722,000, and then basically the costs for each of those services, and then what that equates to per month per unit. So if you look at the top of the chart, the first one would be the Mid-Michigan Waste Collection. So that's some of the contracted services. So that's for collection of your solid waste. And then, the line under it's for the landfill fees. But if you go across that row, so collection costs are 27% of the overall operation, that household count. So if you took that overall dollar amount of $1,308,000 divided by the 18,492 units that are provided the service is $70 of your rubbish fee. And then that cost per month is $5.85. So if you went down these rows all the way through, that's how it equates. Our legacy costs, which is huge, if you look down middle of that table, is our legacy costs this year are $526,678. When I say legacy costs, that's for like retiree health care, retiree pensions, OPEB, them type of costs. Is basically 11% of the overall fund. That would equate to almost a $29 per unit per year cost, or $1.51 of the overall fund. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but that's pretty much just a table to show you what the total overall fund and the expenditures and the revenues that are necessary, so to provide them operations. And then this is just a pie chart depiction of the table you had seen previously in the slide. As you can see, again, the bigger piece of that pie is for the Mid-Michigan Waste Collection, and then all the rest by percentages. And then this is just a chart to kind of show you, we did a little bit of research for some comparable rubbish fees from other communities within the state, some here closer. You got Lansing, Saginaw Township, Bay City, Farmington, and then Battle Creek. And then again, you can't do an apple-to-apple comparison. Every community is probably unique in its own sense of what services they provide, and also any and all other fees that are included within their rubbish. I don't know what their legacy fees are, or and actually all the services that each community provides. But this was just kind of to give you a comparison as to where the city's proposed $240 per year per unit fee. Again, with almost $30 of that being legacy costs. So if you could take the legacy costs out, which you can't, the fee would be somewhere more around $210, which is in line or even less than some of these communities here. So I wanted to show everybody that, so that we see that Saginaw really isn't out of line with its rubbish fee. Here's slide 14 is just kind of a rubbish fund fiscal overview. Again, in fiscal year 16, that's when we brought yard waste and recycling in-house to be more efficient, to reduce some of the costs to the rubbish fund. Again, it was, somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 a year, which that's savings that I didn't have to increase the fee to each unit. Again, we're looking at reviewing the proposals from some service vendors for the services that are contracted, and make some decisions so we can have a better idea of what our costs are going to be moving forward. Slide 15, cost breakdowns. Mid-Michigan waste fees are growing and under contract obligation through the end of this year. We have no option but to pay those fees and also to get the services for the residents within the city of Saginaw for that. Again, you can see in an earlier slide the population loss and the housing loss from 23,258 to 18,492. So some of those fixed costs have to be dispersed among a smaller remaining unit count. The last several years, the city has been balancing the rubbish fund by using fund equity in an attempt to keep the annual fee down. And then again, it's best practice to try to keep at least 10% contingency of the fund in case we run into any issues, so we don't try to deplete the fund balance or the fund equity to zero. And your proposed fiscal year 23 annual rubbish fee of $240, I just tried to break it down to what that would mean by month per week. So you'd be looking at basically about $20 per month per unit, $4.61 per week, or a 66 cents a day cost for those services to cover the overall operation of the fund. So with that is the rubbish fund presentation. City of Saginaw's fiscal year 23 sewer and water fund. The presentation I'm about to give you today was prepared by myself and Paul Reinch. Just so you guys know, everybody knows the water and sewer fund, there are actually two departments that oversee both of these funds. Paul Reinch, he's the Director of Water and Wastewater Services. He's responsible directly for the water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, remote facilities sides of the funds. And then myself, I'm directly responsible for what's called the maintenance and service side of the departments, but we do work together. I think we work great together. Obviously, treating the water and getting the water to the residents kind of goes hand in hand, so we do work well together, and I appreciate Paul and his department for all of the assistance that he does give our area throughout the year. I'm going to go through the sewer fund first. That's going to be $590. The documents for the sewer fund can be found in your budget documents as provided by the Office of Management and Budget on pages 245 through 262. As you can see on this slide, estimated revenues and estimated expenditures, basically the budget, the proposed budget for fiscal year 23 is $24,021,750. The estimated sewer revenues for fiscal year 22 were $24,932,000, so fiscal year 23 appears to be actually a reduction of around $910,974. Most revenue for sewer is generated from the sewer usage or the treatment of the sewage on your sewer rate. And that dollar amount is estimated at $21,500,000. We are proposing to use fund equity this year in the amount of $1,485,000. And just so everybody knows, that's what our budget is, but this time of year when we do our proposed budgets, work with our divisions to propose what is the city of Saginaw's need. Our proposed budget was actually over $33 million. But because of what we do when we do our gap analysis, we're asked to cut our expenditures to meet what we know our known revenue sources are. We went back to our divisions and told them they had to look to find, to cut over $9 million to get us within what we can generate revenues for. So I'm just telling you that in the sense that our needs are far greater than what our budget is. And I know specifically for the sewer that there hasn't been a sewer rate increase since 2018, so that's over 14 years. So Paul and myself, we're working with a rate consultant right now to try to get the, and I know nobody wants to hear this, but to get the rates in line to what our needs are. So we've consistently been managing the budget and keeping our fingers crossed and hoping we can get through the year to try to keep these rates down, which we're going to do again. But right now we're working on a sewer rate review, and more than likely there's going to be an increase again because we haven't had one since 2008, and there's been all types of increases to everything, retiree health care, pensions, material costs, trust me, stuff like that over the last 14 years, so. And then some other revenue sources for sewer, within the sewer fund are state trunk line maintenance through an agreement with MDOT for street cleaning and catch basin cleaning. IPP fines and surcharges, that's for industrial pre-treatment. Sewer connections, IPP testing and sampling, and interest and penalties on later delayed payments. And all that stuff can be found in detail within your budget documents. Just a little bit of history for the fund, the wastewater treatment plant and remote facilities, which is a big part of this department and the overall fund. The plant has a 32 million gallon per day capacity, and on average, I believe, treats somewhere around 20 to 25 million gallons, and most of that comes from your sanitary households, industrial and commercial usage, and then stormwater and infiltration, during rain events, stuff like that. Remote facilities, there are 7 retention treatment basins throughout the city, and that was another big reason we tried to keep our costs down. 20-some, 30 years ago, the city through the state was required to put in retention treatment. The city's unique in the sense that 99 or greater percentage of its system is actually a combined system where the sanitary and stormwater flow through the same pipes. They all go to the treatment plant to be treated and then discharged into the river. So we were required to put in these retention treatment basins, which I believe at the time was over $100 million project that we had to bond for, and we had to pay that debt off over time. I believe a couple years ago that debt payment has been cleared, but because of increases to OPEB and different pension obligations and stuff like that, it appears the dollars that we used to pay our bond principal and interest payments are now being used to cover some of those other liabilities. So it hasn't, from what we're seeing, freed up any money that we can then use to do projects or to continue to pay for other costs within this, with these departments. And then you have the maintenance and service side of things. That's under myself. That provides continuous maintenance and service on the city's sewer collection system. The primary responsibility of this section is maintenance programs on the city's over 306 miles of sewer collection system. It involves repair of all sewer line breaks and leaks, installation and repair of sewer mains, and locating and staking of city sewer utilities prior to excavation by others. Activities also include meter reading, construction of new sewer connections, and other items that are necessary to maintain the system. Sewer fund, again, the fiscal year 22 approved budget was just over 24 million. The proposed 23 budget is a little less. It's about a $910,000 or 3.7% decrease. Again, there's very minor decreases overall from the current fiscal year. Many items vary from division to division. Some of the increases are directly related to materials and contracted services. We're seeing huge increases in materials and chemicals and definitely contracted services in today's environment. And then some items reduced due to staffing level issues. We're currently understaffed in many of our areas. Maintenance and service has 12 to 14 vacancies in a division that has about 37 employees, so we're almost 30% reduced staffing levels, which is creating issues as far as getting a lot of our required work completed and stuff. So I can't speak to Paul's department. I'm sure he's seeing some similar issues with, especially in some of his highly technical and highly skilled areas with getting employees to work. So we are looking at possibly having to contract some stuff out, at least temporarily, until we can get our staffing levels back to where they need to be. Sewer fund. Again, the divisions within the fund, this is just basically a table that to the left shows you, at least directly, the divisions that are under myself as far as the Director of Public Services, and then to the right, which would be under Paul Reinsch as far as water and wastewater services. But again, we do work together. And then you got an engineering and administration division, and you can see the dollar amounts. I'm not going to go through all of these, but these pretty much make up the overall expenditure side of the overall sewer fund. And again, greater detail related to each of these divisions can be found on pages 245 through 262 of your budget documents. And I just wanted to point out that, again, similar to pretty much every department within the city, the legacy costs for the sewer fund are at $3,795,000, or 16% of the overall budget that we have to pay to, the legacy costs, which include retiree health care and retiree pension obligations. The next couple slides are just to point out some of the major projects and purchases within the fund. Vehicle and large equipment purchases for this year are around $72,000, and this includes basically one pickup truck for wastewater treatment, aero boards for maintenance and service to be used in setups when we're out on the road doing work, and then 2 zero-turn mowers at the wastewater treatment plant. And then again, if you go through throughout your budget, you can see some of the larger items. Process control systems is looking at doing Logic software updates, SCADA system, computer-related stuff, just over $500,000. Meter maintenance and service for materials for water meters, AMR, automated meter reading smart points, is just over $100,000. And then again, you can get greater detail on all of those within the budgets. Under surplus, that's where most of our, either under, well, especially for sewer, water, some bond stuff, but surplus and capital for the sewer side, professional and engineering services related to upcoming construction projects is around $77,000. Construction projects themselves, Travis Hare, our city engineer, gave a presentation sometime late March, early April with the projects that you're going to expect to see this summer. Anytime we have road projects, there's more than likely sewer-related items. That's just over $700,000. Some repair and replacements at the wastewater treatment plant is just over $1 million. And then again, some of the maintenance equipment for the needs at the plant and the maintenance and service division, as discussed earlier. Again, major projects. These are just some of the projects that were shown by the city engineer. You got West Holland, East Remington. You can see some of that's going on as I speak. Mackinac, Congress to Alexander, Lapeer, Roosevelt, Austin to 6th. And then there's some security and HVAC improvements at maintenance and service. And then some work done with instrumentation and process control and wastewater treatment plant maintenance and rehab projects of just over $1 million. Sewer fund, some future items, some concerns to address. I know Paul Reinsch, Director of Water and Wastewater, has given several presentations, I believe, on many needs, both related to water and sewer. One of the critical ones with sewer is parallel sewer river crossing that the city needs. We have an existing single 42-inch river crossing installed in the 1940s. It crosses White Street Pump Station under the Saginaw River north of 675. And we're proposing to install a parallel main. We have some needs at the Hancock CSO and parking structure. And again, as I spoke earlier, with all the needs we have, this stuff isn't budgeted, so we're currently working with the rate consultant. Again, no increase to the sewer rate since 2008. But I'm going to just get into a little bit of detail on each of these as discussed. So the city of Saginaw owns and operates a river crossing pipe for wastewater. The pipe was installed in the late 1940s. It's a 42-inch diameter pipe that crosses the waste pump station under the Saginaw River. Its purpose is to transport all of the system's wastewater that is generated on the west side of the river to the east side before reaching the city's wastewater treatment plant. Inspection of the pipe is a task that requires low flow conditions and careful timing, and the city is currently doing documented research to gather previous inspection and study information. If the pipe were to fail, all of the west side's raw sewage would flow directly into the Saginaw River for an unknown length of time. If isolation of the crossing is achieved, all flow would be diverted to the combined sewer overflow facilities on the west side of the river. While a means of chlorine disinfection is present, along with some sedimentation available at the White Street and Salt Fraser combined sewer overflow facilities for unexpected overflows, treating the west side's rate of flow for a long period of time is not possible. Therefore, the city is proposing to construct a second sewer river crossing. A new second crossing would provide redundancy, a means of transporting flow while assessing and maintaining the existing pipe in good condition, and overall will greatly reduce the city's risk of a catastrophic sewage leak. ARPA funds are and have been requested for this much-needed project in an attempt to keep these costs from being included in future surplus or bond projects and ultimately assessed to the users through a sewer rate increase. There has been talk of a second redundant line over the years, but has never been completed to date. I am sure this was due to the impact of the combined sewer overflow facilities that were bonded for and paid off over the 30 years. If this additional crossing is not installed and the existing crossing fails, there would be no way to transfer combined sewer flows from the west side to the east side of the river in this northern part of town. This project will be needed and is needed regardless of funding source. The cost as part of the ARPA request was a rough estimate at $7 million. Depending on what methodology is feasible, it appears that with professional engineering and construction administration costs, the estimate and monies required are closer somewhere between 8 and 13.5 million for a gravity parallel main, and a second option of building a pump station and force main on the west side would be over 20 million. And these costs are at current pricing, what we're seeing in today's dollars into 2022, and moving forward could maybe even increase. Given the current inflationary environment, it could actually be more. If we were able to receive ARPA funding, it would result in numerous benefits. It would assure significant savings to the entire community and help keep sewer rates lower. It would protect against a potentially serious failure and mitigate any resulting permit violations and/or related fines. It would protect the environment from damage resulting from a failure event. It would allow redundancy of a crossing to help maintain the infrastructure moving forward without risk to the community. And ARPA funds, again, would have a generational benefit to the customers of the city. And ARPA funds would allow us to move as quickly as possible to address this concern. And then the Hancock CSO parking structure, that's the structure located over there, going to be the northeast corner of Court and Hamilton, just near the Court Street Bridge. And CSO stands for Combined Sewer Overflow, sometimes it's referred to as a retention treatment basin. This is a current structure built in the late 80s or early 90s, which includes a parking deck over the top of the facility. The parking deck and CSO have been evaluated and are in need of repair. The use of the parking deck has caused deterioration of concrete structure due to the salt usage and deterioration of the concrete. The lower section of the CSO is experiencing deterioration due to hydrogen sulfide effects to the concrete below. In each case, the structural integrity of the facility is being deteriorated. It is not to the point of failure yet, but is important to correct the issue before it becomes unsafe or unusable. The general fund portion of the city has really not found a way to fund its portion of the project to date. As stated earlier, a portion of that deck is used for parking, so it's a non-sewer related item. Therefore, if we're going to continue to allow the use of it as for parking, there would have to be general funds or other dollars designated towards that project. Again, it was estimated at $4 million. The costs are rough estimates due to the current inflationary environment. And again, possibly could be more due to the costs that we're seeing in recent projects that we have been bidding. That was the sewer fund. Now on to the water fund. Again, the water fund is oversaw by both departments, myself over public services, the maintenance and service side, and Paul Reinsch, the director of water and wastewater for the water treatment plant. The water fund can be found in the budget documents, pages 263 through 280. Estimated water revenues for fiscal year 23 are $38,909,000 as compared to fiscal year 22, which was $35,678,000. It's an increase of just over $3 million. Most revenues for the water are from the water bills and the water rate study, $21,300,000. Bond proceeds for this year in the amount of $10,290,000. And the proposed use of fund equity just over $4 million to cover the operations and the projects that are included. Other sources of revenue for water are from service fees. As you can recall, 3 years ago, we did add a line item for lead line replacement, and there's a flat fee dollar amount that generates, I believe, just over $1.5 million for that. Interest and penalties on non or late payments, and then again bond proceeds for any capital projects that we're proposing. Again, as I spoke on the sewer side, we did put together our proposed budget. Although it wasn't as great as the sewer, there were some cuts that were needed to be made to our requested list of our water needs. Again, we're able to use some bond proceed amounts to cover some of that and some fund equity. So, but the gap analysis wasn't as great of a cut as it was on the sewer side. And a lot of the increases we're seeing are due to, healthcare pension obligations, legacy costs, and definitely material and chemical increase costs. I know over in the water treatment plant side of things, I can't even speak to the dollar amount or the percentage of increase on some of the chemicals for chlorine and lime and different chemicals that they need to add for their treatment processes, but they're very significant. So it's definitely affecting our budget. To give you some history, the Saginaw Water Treatment Plant has been operating since September 29, 1929, and is one of the largest drinking water plants in the state with a maximum treatment capacity of 52 million gallons per day. I believe on average, seasonally, summer obviously higher usages and stuff, but I believe the plant on average is seeing somewhere between 18 and 25 million gallons per day average usage. And then the water and maintenance and service, it provides continuous maintenance and service on the city's water distribution system. The primary responsibility of this section is the maintenance programs on over 411 miles of water distribution mains. It involves repair of all water mains, lateral connections, and investigate any leaks, installation of new water lines per the lead copper rule, repair of fire hydrants and valves, and locating and staking of city water utilities prior to excavation by others. The water fund, again, as previously stated, the proposed budget this year is $38,909,000, and I did explain some of the reasons behind the increases in the previous slide. Water fund, again, some of the divisions that are underneath each department. Public services to the left are, for the most part, those divisions that I'm directly responsible for as part of the water fund, and to the right, under water and wastewater, would be those that are directly under Mr. Reinch's responsibility as the director. And then each division with what they are and then the dollar amounts associated. Again, you see customer accounting under there. It's actually not managed by either public services or water, wastewater, but it's shown as a division based on how the service is paid for. And again, this is the 4th year of the new service line replacement division with a current price of $691 per month, or $82.92 per year per unit, to cover the cost of the mandate by the state to replace any lead service line or any line that was once tied to lead. We have to have that completed within 20 to 25 years of the first year, and again, we're 4 years in, so I believe we have somewhere around 15, 16 years left to complete that. The cost will be reviewed annually to ensure generating enough revenue for the program and to adjust accordingly if need be. Also, we will continue to search and apply for other funds if available through state or federal programs to reduce the cost to the city to meet the lead copper rule. Most recently, we have received approval for around $4.4 million in DWSRF funds to be used towards a lead service line replacement. Again, greater detail on this budget can be found on pages 263 through 280 of the budget documents. And similar to sewer, there are legacy costs that are included within each of these divisions, and from what I can tell from going through the budget, about $3.2 million, or just over 8% of the overall fund, is used to pay for those legacy costs. Some major projects and purchases within the water fund: water treatment plant, remotes, facility, miscellaneous projects and bonds, right around just over $9 million, almost $10 million, and there's some examples: high service upgrades, $3.4 million, low water treatment plant, low service raw water storage improvements, $1.9, and then just some miscellaneous improvements at the plant for just over $4.5 million. Some maintenance and service, miscellaneous projects and engineering, around $3.8 million, and then again, the division for lead and galvanized service line replacement this year is at $2.3 million. Some water funds related to the road project, similar to the sewer side, and again, the presentation as given by our city engineer had some of the road projects, and as anytime you're going to really look at redoing something with the street, you have to look at some of the utilities that are beneath it and its condition, especially for reconstructions. We look at it whether or not there's water needs, and with the lead copper rule, we definitely have to get ahead of the project and make sure we have any lead service lines replaced prior to that construction. But just over $1 million in the water needs as related to the street construction projects. And then some projects in process on the water side. Slide 12 shows here, this is Scotchville Raw Water Pump Station Improvements, Phase 2. Roughly $1.9 million project that's currently under construction. It's replacing an oversized constant speed pump with the second variable frequency drive pump. Added an on-site emergency generator, additional valve automation for blending, and then again the cost associated bid project amount $1.24 million, and then the pad mount generator was $650 for the total $1.9. A Frankenmuth parallel main. So on August 3rd, 2021, the city received 7 qualified bids for this Portsmouth Road transmission auxiliary loop. This is to provide out-city customers with some safety and redundancy on the finished water side. Project has been awarded to the low bidder, DVM Utilities, in the amount of $2,269,000. The project includes the installation of just over 7,000 feet of transmission water main varying in size from 20 to 24 inch. The new transmission water main will tie into the existing 24-inch water main located at Portsmouth Road and Herzog Road intersection and run along Herzog Road and tie into the Frankenmuth Water Pump Station located on 5930 Reimer Road. The City of Saginaw currently delivers treated water to the City of Frankenmuth and Frankenmuth Township through one 20-inch water transmission main, which was installed in 1971. The City of Saginaw has had multiple breaks over the last 25 years on this main, where the City of Frankenmuth and Frankenmuth Township has had to rely on their water towers and emergency water main interconnects with neighboring municipalities for domestic water until repair could be done. The addition of the Portsmouth Road transmission main will give the City of Saginaw the redundancy needed to supply domestic water to Frankenmuth Pump Station from either transmission main in the case of a water main break. The additional transmission main will give the City of Saginaw the ability to repair and rehabilitate the 1970-era water transmission main without the loss of water supplied to the Frankenmuth Pump Station. Again, in today's volatile times and the inability to get construction materials and water main piping, we were hoping to have the project started, but the contractor's still waiting on getting all the materials for the project. So hoping to get those soon and hopefully get that project started here sometime in May with the completion hopefully this fall. Another project, as stated earlier, the lead service line replacement project. The city is attempting to do most of this on its own. There's some huge cost savings to that. But most recently this year, the Director of Water and Wastewater, Paul Reinsch, did apply for some DWSRF funding that we were successful for in the amount of $4.42 million. So we did put a project out to bid, hoping to get, many of those. I believe the project was hoping to get 1,000 lines replaced, but based on the costs. We do have a low bid. We're currently working with that low bid vendor right now to ensure that they can fulfill the requirements of the bid documents along with bonding, so we can move forward on awarding that project to a vendor to get moving on it. It is a 3-year contract, and it'll be spread out over 3 years per EGO requirement. Council should be seeing, hopefully here in the next couple months, council communication with a recommendation to proceed on some form of that project. Slide 15 is water treatment plant water treatment optimization study. On September of 2018, the city entered into an agreement with Fishbeck, Thompson, Carr, and Huber for studies to optimize treatment processes for the water treatment plant and the water treatment division. This study has begun and is ongoing. The study is focusing on, but not limited to, jar and batch testing for coagulation optimization and organics reduction, possible alternate coagulation options, continued corrosion protection of mains and water lines, possible powder-activated carbon addition to the pipeline at the Kochville Reservoir site, alternate raw water disinfectant and biogrowth prevention at Whitestone Point. That's where the city receives its raw water. Test to determine best of the best. This would combine the findings of previous tests to simulate and optimize them all in combination to ensure that they'll be successful. Aeration modeling in coordination with manufacturers, GAC media and existing filters to determine possible filter rebuild concepts, rapid scale testing to provide total organic removal and control of taste and odors, review of current TTHM, total trihalomethylene measures for mixing and flocculation measures review, lime addition changes, review piping and flow reconfigurations at the Kochville station. Additional studies will include plan for maintenance and enhancement of Lake Linton to achieve consistent and higher quality water, PFAS and PFAS evaluation and monitoring practices, etc. Due to the age of treatment processes, changes in raw water quality, and changes in drinking water regulations, it is recommended that the city conduct studies on how treatment processes may be changed to continue meeting or exceeding drinking water regulations and continue to delivering high-quality drinking water to its customers. Again, this is just the study portion of that. Once the studies are completed, we can expect there will be some projects to implement with the study recommendations. So that'll be, future years down once we can get the studies completed. And that'll be some capital projects as part of that. The next slide, slide 16, is the new high service pump station, and its estimate is $6 million. The city of Saginaw is proposing to construct a new high service pump station at the existing water treatment plant. The city is currently working with Tetra Tech and Spicer on the study phase of this project. There are 9 existing high service pumps located in the engine room. They pump potable water from 2 on-site 10 million gallon ground storage reservoirs to transmission lines on Ezra Russ Drive and South Washington Avenue. The proposed high service pump station will be located near the ground storage reservoirs and connected to the existing 48-inch suction piping to draw suction from either reservoir to the wet well. 2 new high service discharge lines from the new pump station will connect to the existing high service lines within the water treatment property to supply water to transmission lines, again, the transition lines to Ezra Russ Drive and M13. The new high service pump station will improve resiliency of the water system by facilitating future improvements to the existing high service pumps without interrupting water supply. The new pumping station will be capable of emptying the existing ground storage reservoirs, which is not currently possible. New equipment will be selected to optimize pumping efficiency. Another project we're working on, based on the needs of the city, is a potential elevated storage tank. Preliminary estimates on that are anywhere from $10 million for a 2 million gallon tank up to $13 million for a 2.5 million gallon tank. On January 24th of 22, the city received a proposal for the design services for a 2 to 3 million gallon finished water elevated storage tank. The services of Spicer Group are to include project plan assistance if needed, preliminary design, final design, and bid assistance. Any construction-related services will be added at a later date. And we're currently researching location possibilities of where this tower could be located within the city to best fit the needs of the community. The project will result in greatly improved resiliency. The elevated storage will add 2 to 3 million gallons of available stored finished water for use during emergencies. The elevated storage of water provides system pressure to protect the water supply during power outages, main breaks, and fire and/or pumping system failures. We are in the process of applying for drinking water state revolving loan funds at this time. No current funding source has been designated. The city would need to add this to the ARPA-funded project list or bond or other and add to the water rates. This amount of water would give the city about 2 hours of water supply on average and time to start generators or make other adjustments necessary to continue to provide the water at this time. Slide 18 is a raw water transmission study. As you can see, we got quite a bit going on. The raw water transmission study to determine the most cost-effective means to have raw water redundancy from the Kochville reservoirs to the water treatment plant. Cost to be determined would be based on study results. Possible options would be to provide more raw storage closer to the water treatment plant, build a new plant at the Kochville station, or run a parallel line from the Kochville station to the water treatment plant. The city of Saginaw supplied water from Saginaw Municipal Water Supply from Whitestone Point. In the 1940s, a 36-inch water main was built to serve as a raw water supply for the city of Saginaw. Approximately 20 years later, a new 48-inch water main was built to serve as additional raw water supply to the city of Saginaw Water Treatment Plant. Shortly thereafter, the previously used 36-inch raw water transmission main was converted to a finished water transmission line to feed out city customers. There is currently only one raw water line between the Kochville Reservoir and the intersection of Houghton and Mershon. If the single raw water transmission main would fail between these two locations, the city would be forced to rely on Lake Linton only while repairs were being made. Lake Linton, at its current volume, only provides enough stored water for about 1.5 days of user demands. The only other emergency source of raw water for the existing treatment plant is the Saginaw River. And it would be very difficult, my understanding, to actually take that water and treat it and have no odor or taste. There'd be probably substantial issues with the condition of the raw source versus where the city of Saginaw currently gets its raw source, which is a very high-quality raw water to begin with. Some future projects, again, as we discussed, raw transmission improvements, finished transmission improvements, plant upgrades, possibly versus a new plant. Again, the existing plant has been in service for 92 years, and I think the city and Paul and his staff have been doing a great job of continuing to provide high-quality water out of that, especially based on its age and treatment processes that were put in place at that time. Ongoing distribution improvements and service line replacements, and then sewer needs to be determined, collection system and wastewater treatment plant. Project priority drivers, we need to continue to look at level of service and our asset management plan to determine the most critical needs of the city. Resiliency and redundancy of raw and finished water supply, again, including with this parallel river crossing to hopefully not have any future issues with that. Protection of the system water quality, directly related to pressure and chlorine residual for high water quality. And then funding. Funding's a big thing. Affordability, costs, benefits. We have to continue to look at our rates and are our rates affordable, but yet still meet the needs of the city to continue to provide, high quality water and also wastewater treatment. And another key is to relate funding sources are critical to complete the projects discussed, as well as a proper rate base to pay for the needed projects, loans, etc. The city is currently seeking ARPA funding for river crossing and the Hancock CSO parking structure. We're also seeking DWSRF funding for elevated storage. There's currently a lot more DWSRF money requests than the money available. The city did put in an intent to apply for the elevated storage, is my understanding, and we were ranked 81 out of 139, so we're ranked pretty low on that, which at least at this point would lead us to believe that we wouldn't be successful in obtaining the DWSRF funding for that project. So in order to move forward, that funding would have to come from, another source or be a bond project that would then be included, or ARPA funding to keep it from being a bond project that would then ultimately increase the water rates. We're going to continue to research funding sources and do our best, both Paul and myself, to keep costs as low as possible, but yet continue to provide at least at a minimum, all of the services that fulfill the city's needs. With that, that is the end of my budget presentation.